And welcome back. This is Cult of Elections, and today we are going to be discussing what would happen in the 2020 election if third parties didn't exist. So, we're not going to waste any time here. We are going to go ahead and mark all the obviously safe seats that aren't going to be changing. So, nothing really surprising here. There wasn't a whole lot of third-party vote this time around, so there isn't going to be any major shifts in vote counts, but there is a couple shifts in who is the winner of some states, actually. So be sure to watch for that. Colorado, it really just depends on what you consider a safe seat, but I consider it safe. That's for the Democrats. So 192 to start. It's a pretty solid base, but we put Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, all these. Montana, I'd consider it safe to begin with, but add in Libertarians, an assumption that all Libertarians would vote for Trump instead of Biden. It makes more sense in some regard. I'm sure there would be some crossover vote, but it's safe to say that most Libertarians, a vast majority of them, would have voted for Trump had Joe Jorgensen not been on the ballot. And in terms of the Green Party, Howie Hawkins didn't really get a lot of vote this time. So, yeah, turnout big time down. Same thing with Missouri, South Carolina too. Again, it just depends on what margin you consider safe. So 107 for Republicans. Actually, I take that back. Nebraska as a whole, and then it's 1st and 3rd districts as well. And you could throw, I already put Maine's 1st district in there. And actually, I am forgetting one. This down here, Alaska. Somewhat safe to begin with, but take out Libertarians and it moves into a pretty safe column. So, a couple changes here to begin with, but nothing too crazy. We can go to likely seats for Democrats. We can throw New Mexico, Virginia, Minnesota, and I believe that's it. Yes. Yes, it is. So, New Mexico, Virginia, borderline safe, but take out Libertarians and they just push into the likely column. Minnesota, it doesn't really change much logistically, so I'd still put it in the likely column. It's not 1% of the vote isn't going to change much in Minnesota, especially when Howie Hawkins gets 0.2 or 0.3. It's not really going to change much in a lot of these states too. And going to the Republican side, you could say the same about Iowa and Ohio. They're likely they change in Trump's favor, and I forgot to mark Indiana as safe. That's kind of embarrassing. Okay. Yeah, Iowa and Ohio, they do change in his favor, but not quite to the safe margin. And Texas, same thing there. Can definitely be said about Texas. We can move to the lean states, and to go with my pattern still, I'll go with Democrats. First, Michigan still doesn't get Trump over the hump there. It was a bigger margin than Wisconsin and Pennsylvania in terms of percentages. So, yeah, with a lower third party turnout, it doesn't flip. And that's the only one for Democrats. Sorry, I forgot to mark New Hampshire as likely. This is, well, it should be pretty obvious. There wasn't going to be a major shift there either. But yeah, lean states, we can put Florida, North Carolina, unchanging. So yeah, third party does not shift it into the likely column or anything. But yeah, it's a more comfortable margin than, say, North Carolina. Florida was already a pretty comfortable enough margin for Trump anyways. And now here's where it gets interesting. I'm not going to go Democrat-Republican pattern. So I'll start on this edge of the map. Possibly because I'm missing some things. I'm really missing things. Wow. Alright, yeah, you can throw that in there. Doesn't really... Yeah, nothing in these changes at all. So there's not much to be said. But, okay. In terms of the 5 states that are left. And, yes, you can go back. And aside from Alaska, if you go back to the days after election, we were all waiting for these states to be called. Arizona was called a lot sooner than it should have been. And I know a lot of conservatives, Republican voters would agree with that. But the margin ended up being at the end versus what it was when it was called by Fox News and the Associated Press, the AP, it was just a stupid early call. It very well could have gone to Trump originally, but we'll start with Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is... Oh, the suspense. I know. It still remains in Joe Biden's column, but by the slightest, and I mean the slightest of tilt margins. It's, I want to say, as close as Arizona and Georgia were in the regular election, assuming all Joe Jorgensen voters went to Trump. But it still goes into his column, which puts Joe Biden at 263, which you might be thinking, wow, so he pretty much just needs either Nevada to tie or any of these 3 to win. We'll see what happens here. So, Georgia is the first flip. It goes to the tilt Trump margin, but that should be no surprise. It was a very close margin as it was anyways. And Joe Jorgensen votes going to Trump instead, completely change it. And the same can be said about Wisconsin and Arizona. Very close margins in these 3. So that, all of a sudden, gets Trump to 269. So it all comes down to Nevada. Joe Biden can either tie or Trump can win. And, ready for this? Oh, you thought? No. Yes, Joe Biden would take Nevada in a tilt margin. So, in a way, this would make the election a lot more close and a lot more biting your nails to the skin, because this election would have been insanely close with all these tilt margin states. Even more tilt margins than were already there. It's kind of wild. But now you might be wondering, what happens if there's a tie? What happens if there was a tie? Well, lucky for you, I actually have a video that discusses just that. And I'm not going to talk about the same thing twice in 2 separate videos. So I should be having that come overhead, probably about up here or something. I think that's where it shows up on mobile. But yeah, I'll have the link in the description if it's not there. But yeah, be sure to watch that video, because that video also turns out to have a pretty interesting ending. A lot like this one. So, anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Be sure to like and subscribe for more daily content. And, well, have a good one. Peace.